when I think of the CEO journey, part of it is ego, right? Part of it is like, can I become a CEO? Can I lead a company? And the amazing thing that when it happened, at least in my case, the totality of my ego disappeared. Oh, I'm here already. So if I'm here, that means I have a responsibility, right? I have to do something with this. So it was no longer about, I worthy, can I do this? It was the other way around. Oh, I'm here. Oh, therefore I have to give back.
Welcome to Encouraging Leaders, a podcast that exists to remind CEOs and aspiring CEOs that you do not have to lead alone. I'm Mark D. Braun, and today I am joined by a special guest, a dear friend, Bassel Hamwi. Bassel is a world traveler. He's up in New York, and he's part of the YPO community. He serves on boards. He has been in the private equity group, serving in companies throughout his career, as well as in the financial sector. I got to read a post the other day that he's been at the start of the Damascus Stock Exchange, which I'll let him tell you more about. And then also on Wall Street the other day. He travels the world and he serves leaders. Right now, he's giving back and coaching CEOs just like I am. I've only met him over the last couple of years, but I have fallen in love with his leadership. He serves with such a heart. I shared with my wife after I met him that one of his hugs lasts for a month. And I need more hugging. The people that can actually hug well and transmit the care and compassion that they have through physical contact. So thank you for hugging so well, Bassel. Bassel, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Mark. It's really a pleasure to be with you and to see you. And I really enjoy our conversations. I'm looking forward to connecting with you and with your listeners.
Yeah, it's great to have you on the show. I do think it's such a special treat to be able to have conversations whenever you are touched by somebody's leadership and you get to open up a conversation and share those with people that I care about as well. The leaders that are on, I try to help them understand that they don't have to lead alone. It was one of the lessons that I had to learn as a young leader. And many of them are just still hitting their heads against the wall, trying to lead all by themselves. I do ask the same question for every leader on the podcast is, when in your leadership journey did you realize that you didn't have to do this whole thing alone, that you could get help and support?
I realize this every day, clearly. But the first time I really felt the weight of it was probably in my late 30s when I was starting the stock market and the first bank in Syria. I mean, just think of it this way. You're a new appointed CEO. You kind of know how this is done in theory. You have read the papers, you have read the research, you have seen how these things are done, but you've never actually built a stock market from scratch or started a bank. So doing it alone is not even close to being an option. It's just, I felt really confounded by the weight of it and the responsibility of it if it goes awry. So, when you talk about the financial sector, you think about negative externality. It is not like, starting a cement factory and the cement factory turning out to be bad. People will lose their jobs and the investors will lose their money, but that's it. That's where it stops. With a bank or a stock market, the negative externality means that the whole country will suffer. It will ricochet throughout the whole economy, and maybe even outside of the country, the economy will suffer. So the responsibility is manifold over. I was fascinated by how quickly I raised my hand and asked for help. One of the first things I did was I got on the YPO website and sent a message on the member-to-member exchange. And I must have had something like 200 plus responses. One of them was from Alex Capello. We have an award named after Alex Capello. He was our chairman for 2 terms, and he was like incredibly supportive. He pointed the way in more ways than one. But at the end of the day, it's really about working with others, right? There's just no way any of us can do really anything by ourselves. We got everything off the ground. The stock market was built and it was launched in 10, and the bank was launched even earlier and became one of the most big, one of the success stories of the Middle East, and definitely kind of like the most successful bank in the country. And then, try and figure out how to deal with the negative aspects of a civil war that comes and destroys all of what you have built. And even that you can't do alone. Even the process of destruction and dealing with destruction, you need people to help me personally get through it. And that was my local forum. That was a lot of YPOers around me. That was my mentors. That was my coach. But there's just no way of getting anything done alone. Uh, it's probably an exercise in ego management. You can't get things
Yeah.
done.
So you learned it early. I mean, the couple things there stand out. First of all, not everybody on the call has started a stock exchange, but I wonder. I know for myself, I was in water that was too deep. I was trying to do things that were above my own capabilities, which is it hit early for me. It was like, okay, I can't do this alone. I was on my knees. I was like, I can't do this all by myself. And I finally reached out for help. But you were quick. Is there anything back when you think about your upbringing or anything before that that got you to make that call so fast?
I'm just like incredibly grateful that I hit the lottery with my family. I mean, I had the best parents and the best supporting environment around me that anyone can even dream of. My parents were always supportive. My dad was always encouraging. So I just like that was kind of a true outlier of an experience. My
Yeah.
brother and sister who were older than me were also the same. My sister is kind of like my second mom. She's 14 years older. So I just had a lot of I had the lottery. So I can't deny there's the law of probability that made me kind of was responsible for my early beginnings. And that really helped me kind of understand the world from a very different perspective. I knew that we get ahead when we get ahead together. I knew that when we learn together, we bond more. And I knew that anybody's personal success has to translate to the team's success. Otherwise, personal success does not matter.
Yeah, those leadership lessons are so powerful. You learn those early, those leadership lessons are so powerful. Not everybody that's listening had that kind of system in the family, but what's amazing is, you can build those systems now. And so the number of YPO members that I see that don't reach out to the network and ask for help, that don't ever plug into the member to member, that don't ever rely on the forum and just say, "Hey, listen, I need help here." And so I think that it is beautiful that you were able to see those early and get that. It was like a super start, a hyper start, so that whenever you stepped into the stock exchange challenge, you were able to ask for help quickly. That's what I hear there. Is that right?
So very much so. And part of it was, when it's kind of interesting because when I think of the CEO journey, part of it is ego, right? Part of it is like, can I become a CEO? Can I lead a company?
Mhm.
And the amazing thing that when it happened, at least in my case, the totality of my ego disappeared. Oh, I'm here already. So if I'm here, that means I have a responsibility, right? I have to do something with this. So it was no longer about, I worthy, can I do this? It was the other way around. Oh, I'm here. Oh, therefore I have to give back. I have to make sure
Yeah.
that we're all successful. So it's more of a self-actualization process. And with that, with if I don't have really a strong ego, I can ask for help, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's gotta be from me to we, and the journey there, the journey there for me took longer than for you. I feel like I had to go through the stages of, like, crushing the ego and then it breaking, and then I'm sitting there just rebuilding, and then once I figured out that it was all about the other people, like, my leadership was only about the responsibility to the others, that was the leadership. When you had that early, why do you think it takes so long for people to get there, like me, that are slow learners? Why does it take me so long to get there, or people like me?
So you're not going to get this past me. I really don't think you're a slow learner. But I do know that everybody is very different. And when we are trying to figure stuff out, we have our own runway. So many of the people that I work with today are able to reach their destinations and goals much faster than I have because they they have their own runway. They have realizations that have come into their lives at a certain time that really helped. I didn't get a coach right off the bat when I became a CEO. It took me about 6 years to get a coach. And other than 1 year where I was in complete transition, I've always had a coach. Even now, I have a coach. So maybe had I started earlier, it would have been different. Maybe had I had the realization that I want to do this the right way, and I can only do it if I have complete input from people around me. Then that wouldn't have worked unless I did it this way.
So you were asking for help before you got a coach. I got my first coach 20 years ago, and it was whenever I was working for good leaders, but then I transitioned into a VP level role at that time, and the CEO was not a coaching, that wasn't his specialty. And he was like, "I just need you to be able to do your job." And I said, "Okay, well, I need to learn how to do my I need to learn fast." And so I what I've shared with people is that for me with a coach, I'd grow twice as fast as without. My growth rate is really important to the team because if I don't keep growing, they suffer from my immaturity. They suffer from my lack of skill. And so, as we're growing as an organization, I need to keep my growth rate as fast as possible so that I can keep excess capacity open for whatever comes. Tell me, for you, what's the difference between having a coach and having a forum? Because you have both. What's the difference, and why do you need?
Yeah,
What's the difference for you?
it's not only that, it's the coach, forum, as well as a mentor, as well as people I look up to, right? So there is learning from everywhere. And each one of these sources provides coaching and mentoring and that experience differently. What's really fascinating about at least the world I came from, which is the world of finance, is that I started out as being good with numbers and being good in building models. So I was given more responsibility to negotiate deals and more responsibility to structure a transaction and move forward. And then all of a sudden, it happens kind of like without anybody even blinking an eye. All of a sudden, they say, "Oh, you're so good at this. Here, manage people," right? And in the process, nobody has told you how to manage people. There wasn't a single, I'm trying to think back at my career, but I'm a dinosaur. But during my time, there wasn't a single course that I attended during my professional career that taught me about how to manage people. It was all about structuring, economics, whatever it is, the flavor du jour. But it was never about how to manage people. But all of a sudden, you're asked to manage people. So you kind of say, okay, how do I do this? So for me, I was lucky because I had the benefit of working for bosses that were incredibly bright, that were incredibly challenging, that had a vision. And that kind of sharpened and honed in my skills on performance. So I would regard these bosses mostly as mentors. I can't think of a single one that I did not learn something from that was profound. And then, after I left and started, took over my own bank and my own business, I still had a boss. I had a board, right? And I had a chairman. I was also lucky that the group CEO of the company was one of the brightest bankers in the Middle East. So I was like, wow, this is great. And then all around there were people. So there were the mentors, there was my dad with his incredible, thoughtful, compassionate experience. And there was my forum that was incredibly helpful. And then the coach showed up and the coach made a huge difference. So each one of these places is a source of knowledge. And each one provides us with something different than the other. The mentor is not a coach. And I mentor people all the time. I mentor kids and they're amazing. And it's not coaching at all. There's nothing close to coaching in it. And in my forum, the way I show up, I'm a peer, somewhat of a thinking partner, but it's more of being a forum peer.
Mhm.
So it is very different, whether I'm
Yeah.
moderating or whether I'm just showing up. So I think there are just so many repositories of learning, Mark, and it's just up to us to figure out what is it that we need at what time.
Yeah.
'Cause I was insisting on trying to drink from all of these, so that really helped.
Yeah, that's what I hear is the skill there is the learning skill and being able to gather feedback and input from various sources. Again, you go back to ego and I call it coachability, but it's basically how good are you at taking input from sources and turning it into usable growth for you? How good are you at that skill? I think how do you when you're in the coaching relationships, how do you either assess for that or how do you talk about that, the ability for people to gain skills from others
Yeah,
instead of
absolutely.
just for direct experience?
So the type of coaching I do is really custom made, which means it's intellectually and emotionally intensive, and not just on me, but also on the client. And custom made coaching really means that we have to figure out what everybody wants and kind of like figure out whether we're in the right partnership and go for it. And I think you said it right, coachability, and for me, coachability is, does the person really want to have an incredible change in their lives? Do they really want to change the metric and change the projection? And that's why it tends to be more intense. So there is like performance coaches that are incredible at getting athletes to run this, half a second faster or a quarter of a second faster. I'm not that.
Mhm.
I'm the person that you go to if you wanted to like make a radical change in any direction, but a radical change. If
Yeah.
things are going really well and you want to make marginal improvements, I think there's some amazing people out there that can do this. But I'm unfortunately not one of them.
What comes to mind there is that the energy to change, the energy is from it within, the human that wants something different. They want a leader that wants to change, wants a new outlook, wants to grow beyond the 20 million, wants to grow beyond the team that he has. Whatever it is, that's where the energy comes from, and the coaching is able to allow it to be utilized for effective gain. That's what I hear there. Is that matching your experience? Yeah. So we're talking to younger leaders often on this podcast. If they are, young in their leadership, what are some of the leadership lessons that you feel are so critical for them to hear?
I mean, one of the ones that I find profound for me in my case is that for a long time I really thought that the journey is about me, but it wasn't.
It's not about me.
Not about me. No matter
Not
how
about
much I
me.
think it is about me, no matter how much I'd like for it to be about me, it's really not about me. And once all of us cross the finish line, that's when the real joy happens. I want to cross the finish line, but I want you by my side. So that was pretty profound because growing up, that didn't feel like this is the right metric. Growing up, it was like, who's going to cross first and who's not going to be able to finish the race. So now it's actually the other way around. We get to cross the line together.
One of the things that I find difficult is as a CEO, they are weighing the capabilities of their executive team as well as trying to get everybody across the finish line. And sometimes those are competing interests in their head. How do you speak to that for CEOs?
Yeah. Um, I mean, there are so many different aspects to that question. But when I hear you ask it, for me, what comes up first is how does a CEO manage his top line, his C-suite? And in this, I think you have to watch out for a number of things. You have to make sure that the system is fair and equitable, that they see where is it that they need to go themselves, what is their next level move, and that no matter what happens, even if they decide to leave, that they can leave and go somewhere with your support. So having that kind of really strong relationship between the CEO and the C-suite, I think is key. You got to be one team. The moment that the CFO or the COO begins to feel uncomfortable, the team immediately feels it.
Yeah.
And so does the board, so do the employees, everybody feels it. So alignment is key. And alignment, I mean, you're a coach. I've done a number, I've attended and I've done a number of events where we do these offsites and we make sure that the C-suite is aligned.
Yeah.
And it's incredible how often is the case that we are not aligned, and coming together on this vision, I think is absolutely key.
Yeah, I think, alignment between that the team number 1 is what I call it, that group that leads the entire company as a group, and if they're following all of them going across that finish line at the same time, you have success. I mean, if one of the pillars is down and they're behind and
Yeah.
everybody's looking at them saying, "You're a mess," you're like, "No, go back and pick them up and carry them across the finish line because we've gotta get across the finish line." I think separating those 2 roles, there is a role for the CEO that has to decide if the executive is the right executive for the period of growth in the business, and I just find it so complicated for people to try to take that hat off because when you're talking to them, they are your team. You selected them, you are leading them. They are the ones you're going to cross the finish line. They are the only ones that you have a chance to cross the finish line because they're the only ones on the team. And so you need to make sure that you know that they are your team. Until they're not your team, they are your team. And I love what you said there is I want to know what their next step is in life. And if it's not here, I want to know what it is and be able to celebrate them to wherever they're wanting to go. And if it is here, let's all cross the finish line together because we have to cross together or else we didn't cross at all. And I think that there's so many people missing that. Like you can make the financial metric, but if you didn't cross the finish line as a team, you did not actually win the game. So I think that's a great lesson. I know I needed to learn it, and I know that the people listening need to learn it. Anything else that stands out from your work as a leader over the last 3 decades, or the work that you're doing with CEOs that you would really like for the younger CEOs to hear?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're not alone. That's a message that CEOs need to understand. The reason why YPO echoed so much with me was really Ray Hickok's message that it's lonely at the top. And I really felt it when I took over, when I started the bank and I had a board and I had, a C-suite and I had shareholders. I really felt like there's really no one I can go to and talk to about this, right? My friends really did not identify with. I couldn't go and be vulnerable with them. You're like a big shot CEO. Go, we don't have time for that kind of discussion. And the board definitely is not the right place, and the C-suite is not the right place. The family, you're already spending a lot less time with them than you used to. So it's really lonely, right? But the fact of the matter is, we are not alone. We might think we're alone, but we're not alone. There are people around us that are absolutely prepared and very happy to have these conversations. It could be your forum. It could be a group of other CEOs. For me, I didn't have a forum when I first started the bank. I wasn't an IPO. I actually started talking with other CEOs of other banks. There were a lot of things we could not share with one another. We're competing in the same market. But boy, did we have amazing conversation about what we're going through.
Yeah,
Really,
if you are feeling alone, opening up that discussion with people that are in like places. They don't have to be in banking; they can be in other CEO roles. But finding like-minded, I do love YPO for that. It is a unique spot to be able to speak into and have peers that you can actually run hard, complex problems against. And they're like, yeah, I've actually experienced hard, complex problems before. But that feeling of aloneness can happen at any leadership level. I definitely felt it significantly when I stepped into the full P&L. At the president and CEO level, I felt like I was running the company from below there, and I wasn't even close. I remember feeling like, oh, it won't be a big deal. I'm almost doing most of the role. But when I stepped up, I was like, oh, wow, I am alone. And the weight that you mentioned in the beginning of our conversation just came onto my shoulders. I felt like, no one was losing their life, but they were definitely at risk of losing livelihoods and families. And the risk was of my ineptitude. If it would be damaging.
so what did you
And
do?
so I found others. I did join YPO at that time. I had other groups that were solid. I had a coach at that time, but I also wanted peers. The coach was ahead of me by a long way, and I wanted peers that I could not feel alone with. And Forum really did feel that. It was 10 years ago today, and it was amazing to feel supported and a place where I could show up as myself and share anything. One thing I did that was an error, and I would love for people to hear and learn from it, is I did start to share it with my wife, the weight. And I remember she started understanding that I could share it with my coach. And so she said, "Can you call your coach on that?" And she was very much wiser than I. And it wasn't the place. She can do a lot, but it wasn't the place where I could unload that much weight. And so I needed others. It was really helpful to realize that in my marriage. We've been married now 25 years, and I'm trying to make 26, and it was a good lesson at that time. Yeah. If you think back to your youngest leadership space, it sounds like that first time you go into the stock exchange might be it, but it might be one younger. If you were going to tell that younger self, the younger leader, the younger Basil, something that you've learned now, but you would have loved for them to hear then, what would you tell your younger self?
After we launched the stock exchange in 2010, and we listed our bank and several other institutions. Actually, that first year, the stock market was the best performing stock markets in the world in terms of growth. And then the Civil War followed suit, not too far. And, we lost so much. I lost a sense of my identity. I lost, my home. I lost a lot of money, obviously. I lost my country. So it was a profound loss. And at one point, I really thought that's kind of loss that I will not be able to recover from. And Mark, I was convinced at one point that there is no way that the future will be better than the past for me. That was kind of like not a thought, it was a deep, profound knowledge that the future will not be better than the past. And it took, again, some work, right? But definitely, I began to see the future as better and better every day. And now I can't believe the future is so much better than the past. So definitely, there's so much hope out there for everyone that might be going through a challenge, and we can dig into our resilience and find it. And it's part of the human condition. There is no magic recipe. It's not about what Basil or Mark or anybody would do, but it's really deeply ingrained within us, this ability to make that difference. And so if people are going through challenge, I always think that there is a way out, and that the future is actually much better than the past.
Oh, man, I love that one so much. For the people who are listening, many of you I know personally, and some of you I don't yet, but I care about you deeply, and I want you to know what Basil knows, that the future, no matter how bleak it is right now, he actually knew for a fact, like deep in his heart, that there was no way the future could be better than the past. And he has proven to himself that he was wrong. And he knows now that the future can always be better than the past. And so, with resilience and empathy and learning and growth, we can overcome anything. I would love for you to know that. Basil would love for you to know that. I hope that you're encouraged by that message. Thank you so much for listening. And Basil, thank you so much for joining us today and for who you are as a leader.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Mark, and I can't wait to have that long hug again.
It would be my pleasure. If there's anything we can do at encouragingleaders.com, you can find us and set a time. Basil can be found, Bassel Hamwi, on LinkedIn at Bassel Hamwi, or what is your website so that they can get you as
It's
well?
it's Hamwi Consult as a website.
Hamwiconsult.com, and we'll put a link in the show notes. Thank you again, Basil.
Pleasure, Mark. So good to see you.